Hi everyone, Ian Simpkins, Director of Horticulture at Vizcaya, here again with an interesting treat today. This is in the Vizcaya village, and I wanted to show you one of our banyan trees. We have 5 of them on the property, and this is our largest one. Now a banyan is a type of ficus, and there really are only a couple different types that we can call a true banyan. But many of the ficus trees go by the common name of banyan. But really, Ficus bengalensis is one. It's also called a banyan, although that's not really the correct common name for it. The correct common name is council tree, and this is a council tree, a Ficus altissimum. I won't go into the differences between the two and why one is one and one is the other, but it has to do with the arrangement of veins in the leaf and the size and color of the fruit. And speaking of fruits, ficus trees are really interesting, and the fruit is how we know that this is actually a ficus tree, among other things. And I got a couple of the fruits here. And the fruits of ficus trees are called synconium, and they are actually inside out. So when you see a traditional tree flower, the flowers are external, right? So we can see them. But in a ficus tree, the flowers are actually inside. And this is the outside of the fruit here, and that would be the outside of the flower. And you can see where it was attached to the stem there. But the flowers are on the inside of the fruit, and there's a little opening down at the bottom. And that allows tiny wasps to come in and to crawl around in there and to pollinate the fruit. And you can see how many seeds are here, and that tells you just how many of these tiny little flowers were in the fruit. Now, these fruits are actually really popular here in South Florida with a lot of different bird species, and that's why this tree is now becoming invasive. Originally, when this tree was planted, even back in the 19-teens and 1920s, there was no wasp that was here to fertilize the fruits, and so it effectively was sterile. But now we've introduced a wasp that pollinates these trees. So now they're starting to fruit, and the birds are spreading the fruit around, and they're starting to germinate in various places. Now, this tree usually starts off its life as either an epiphyte, meaning it grows on other trees, or as a lithophyte, meaning it grows on stones. Now, this tree is also in the strangler fig type of ficus, and it is called that because if it germinates in the branch of a tree, it'll continue to grow until it smothers the tree and kills it. But that tree provides the initial early support for the ficus, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But this ficus is not native to South Florida. It's actually native to Southeast Asia. So you'll see it in Indonesia, Java, parts of India, and so on. But the climate here is tropical, so it's very conducive to its growth. There are other ficus that are native here to South Florida, but this is not one of them. So if you look at the tree, if we pan back and we take a look at the tree, you'll see these long support roots, right? And ficus is unique in that way, in that it does send out these long roots from the branches, and that's how the tree supports itself. These trees get enormous, and that's how it got its common name of council tree, because this tree gets so big you can hold meetings underneath it, and these meetings could be 50 or 100 people. In its native area, this tree can grow several acres in size, right? And this tree, even though it's really only about 90 years old, it's already covering a full acre of property. So that tells you just how fast this tree grows, how much space it occupies in such a short period of time, and why it's not really suitable for the South Florida landscape, because it just gets so big, it's messy, and it really can overwhelm a structure. It could swallow your house if you let it. So let's go over here. I want to show you some of these root structures because they're really cool. Hopefully I won't eat it. But here's the epiphytic roots. Now these are support roots, and if you go up, you can see where they come out of the branch there, and you can see some of the smaller roots here. And what these do is they'll come from the base of the branch, and then they'll gradually grow down until they reach the soil. And then once they hit the soil, they'll root in and they'll start to get thicker and thicker and thicker. So they'll become less stringy like this, and they'll become more like this, or like some of the ones that you see in here. And I can't imagine, honestly, a cooler tree to experience if you're a kid. Let me show you why. I know if I were a kid and I had one of these by my house, I would never go in the house. When they get big like this, you can actually walk into the tree and you can really get to see the tree in a way that you wouldn't see any other tree, right? And you can see just how big this thing is and how big those branches are. You know, as an example, this little root here is as big as my arm. And that's just a tiny one, right? So this gets pretty large. Now, the other cool thing about this tree is, as I mentioned before, it's about 90 years old. And we think that it's about that age because we have archival photos of this part of the village that show a little blob in the ground right where this tree is now. And so we feel fairly certain that this tree was planted in the 1930s and has grown here ever since then. Now, this isn't the only banyan tree that we have on the property. We have 4 more. We have two others that are here in the Vizcaya village, and then we have 2 that are on the main property. So while this area isn't quite open to the public yet, if you wanted to come see a banyan tree, when we reopen, you can go to the main gardens and go to the orchidarium, and we have a smaller one there. Now, we don't know how old that tree is, but it is a lot smaller than this one because it grows right next to the bay and it's in a harsher environment. This one is in kind of a perfect spot where it can grow as large as it wants to, and it has decent soil and so on. So I hope you enjoyed this little trip of our little banyan tree. And the leaves here, well, I guess before we go, I wanted to show you the leaves, and you can see how they're kind of piled here. As you can imagine, a tree like this generates a lot of leaves. And during the spring, when this tree goes through its leaf drop cycle, these leaves can be a foot deep. But that's how the tree recycles its nutrients, actually. Because when the leaves fall, they hit the ground, and then various organisms and fungi and things like that start to decay the leaves. And when those leaves decay, they release the nutrients back into the soil. So the nutrients that were in the leaves that the tree used, it got from the soil, dropped the leaves, those nutrients are available again, and so the tree just recycles its nutrients year after year after year. It's a perfect example of reduce, reuse, recycle. So with that, I hope you enjoyed our trip. I hope I've covered everything I needed to today. And if you want to learn more about the Vizcaya village, stay tuned for our next Facebook and Instagram live, where we will have a video detailing some of the aspects of the village.